Good evening, everybody. It's Monday night all over again, like Groundhog Day. I thought I was just on here. No, it's been a good day in the valley. We've had great temperatures all day today. We're getting some rain now, sorely needed. Ground's been dry, and today it was 80 degrees here in the valley. Hey, Jonathan. Hey, Clay. Randy. I see you're in here tonight. Mike. Keith. Who else is in here? There's Randy again. Misbehaving Mike, you're in here. And Grayson. Good evening, everybody. I'm glad to see you all here. So, everybody had a good weekend. Have a good Easter. Spend time with the family. So, today was the National Easter egg roll on the White House lawn. Did anybody see any of that today? I didn't because I've been working all day. I had better things to do than sit around and watch the Easter egg roll. Did anybody get in bees this weekend? Hey, Darren, how are you? I guess I better pin the link, shouldn't I? That would probably be a good idea to do. There we go, everybody. It's pinned to the top, so y'all come on in. Lost a queen. Scramble to get a new one. Where'd you get your queen at, Mike? I don't have any yet. Yeah, everybody's being bashful tonight. So we were in hives this weekend and actually put some supers on because they were sorely needed as well. Put some formic on the hives, found a few queen cells, did a couple of splits. So keep that swarming to a minimum. So it's going to be a good week. Hey, Bill, how are you? Is everybody else doing okay? JT, how are you this evening, my friend? Did you have any luck in North Carolina this weekend? Good enough backyard. You're here. Good to see you in here. JT, tell Kathy I said hey. So, what do y'all want to talk about this evening? Give me some ideas. Adding honey boxes. Yeah, that's that time of the year. It is definitely that time of the year. So, who's ready for honey supers? Hey, Roy. Hi, Kathy. So, is anybody else adding honey supers? It's going to get really slow. You need Roy. You need brood. Yeah. So are your bees waking up now from their snowy winter sleep, Roy? Are they starting to brood up at all? I think you still have snow on the ground, don't you? Here's Mr. Charlie.
Yeah.
How are you? JT added some supers this week. JT, you keep sending me pictures of swarms. I hope they're not your bees.
Oh boy. Hey, Mike. Both mics.
Yep.
Hey, Jonathan. Yeah, I finally got all my stuff done today. I worked on it yesterday or Saturday, Sunday, and actually half day today.
Well, Roy, I can tell you this. All the snow at my brother's house had melted. And he got more snow last week. And he's in Vermont, northwest Vermont. Wow, roadside swarm. Did you get any bees over the weekend, Charlie?
Did I get any bees?
Did you get into your bees this weekend?
Oh, got in? Yeah. Saturday afternoon, I had that nuke that I put in place of one of the hives that, it was a dead out. And
yeah,
I put it in there last week while it was kind of cold, so I could lock them up.
Yep.
Not overheat. So they locked them up for about 2 days. And I got out there Thursday night at 8:00 at night. I pulled the screen off, and I had pine needles. I stuck them in the entrance. I had those in there anyway to kind of block what they can't see, I guess.
Yeah.
Even if they couldn't get out. And that seems to help. So they stayed there. So Saturday, I had pulled the screen out. They'd been flying. Looked like they'd stayed there, and there wasn't anything back, 50 feet away. So I pulled the tree limbs out from under front of it. So I went out there after lunch, and I took and put it in 10 frame, and it was a nice strong hive. It worked out well.
Well, that's good. We had our first swarm this weekend.
Really?
Yep. Went right straight to the swarm trap that we had hung a week earlier, and walked right in the swarm trap. Something to be said for using Swarm Command.
So got that done, and then I had let's see, I had 4 nukes sitting there at the other end of the line. So I've been kind of stirring the idea up, like, all right, I need honey production because honey sales are up. I need somewhere around 1,500 pounds a year to be able to keep up. And so there was 4 nukes there. So I took 2 nukes. My idea was that I mean, I don't want to make any more racks in far as I don't want to go out in farther in the field or anything like that. And I'm also trying to balance um, the amount of hives I have. You know, I was at about 3 years ago, I had like 45 hives. You know, that was, you know, mating boxes and nukes. And I was selling heavy on the nukes, and I was selling honey, but it wasn't, you know, 900 pounds was good enough, you know, to get through the season from one season to the next and all that. So I had I had an out yard at a friend's house that he wanted me to basically, he paid for everything. I just kept his bees for him and I got the honey out of it. And so he had passed away, and that yard dried up. So I went from 10 honey hives at home to 12 to make up for that. And that dropped me from 24 nukes and 10 honey hives to 12 honey hives to 20 nukes. And then last year, and it's been going on for several years. I get this time of year, I was all stressed out, trying to get people to come and get bees, making sure I had bees for everybody to sell that I promised. And last year I had that catastrophe with all the queens. And right at that point, I said, all right, this is a good time. I had enough nukes at the time that I had promised to sell, and I kept my promises. And so I went from 12 to 16 honey hives, and I went from 20 nukes down to 12, I guess it was. And then this year I'm looking at it and I'm like, I need somewhere, I think really in order, if I average 80 pounds in order to make my close to 1,500 pound mark, if everything goes well, I would need somewhere around 18 hives. You know, 20 would be better, but you know, depending on fluctuation of hive and strength and maybe losing a hive and that kind of stuff. Hey, James. And so I looked at those 4 hives. I'm looking at my spacing. I'm like, I think I can get away with 8 backup hives instead of 12. And hey, Brian. So anyway, I took 2 of those nukes Saturday afternoon and I split them. And that gave me 2, 4, 6 nukes, but 6 hives, 6 out of the 8. And so then I had 2 more nukes sitting there. And I'm like, okay, what am I going to do here? You know, about honey production versus, you know, backup production. And so, hey, Matt, Clay. So I took one of the nukes, and of course I had not checked these nukes for weeks. And I'm like, you know, everybody else is getting ready to swarm cell type of thing. And so I got into the first nuke that was closest to the honey hive. I said, you know what, I'm going to make, I got enough equipment here, enough, you know, I always keep spares. So I had a spare bottom board, and I had, it was 2, I'm looking, the configuration was 2 deeps and a medium. And I said, you know, I got a medium or deep box here. Let me just make, you know, I got enough to make another honey hive. So I went ahead and turned it into a 10 framer. And there was some cups, and I didn't see any swarm cells. It's right on the verge of that. And hey, Sandy. So I made a honey hive out of that one. And so I had one more nuke left. And I said, well, I got to go through that hive just to go through it, you know, and that's what I did. And then I got to thinking about it. I says, you know, it was another double deep with, I don't know whether it had a medium on top. I think it had a medium on top. And I'm looking at that thing and I'm like, and I said, well, I really I want to cycle the deep stuff out. I'm right now. That's what I'm doing in several of my hives. I'm cycling deep frame, deep boxes out of my system and putting in mediums where everything's the same thing across the board. And which I like that. I like the weight factor and stuff. Easy for me to manipulate. And so what I did was I got 2 medium boxes. I had drawn comb. And I set them hives off, put that medium box, 2 boxes on there with drawn comb in there. Then I took a deep box, nuke box, and made a funnel. And then I took and I shook all those bees back into those 2 new medium boxes. And then I put a queen excluder on, and then I put those deeps back up on top. So I think I had the brood and stuff in them. And let the nurse bees come up. So over the period of the next 2 to 3 weeks, I'll be able to cycle that stuff out of there and do that. And that's also the same way with that hive that I went from 5 frame to 10 frame. I did the same principle situation. And that nuke, I still have it as a nuke. And I got thinking about it, and I'm looking at it. I said, that's going to be my cell builder. It's good and strong. And I says, it's already been split with a queen excluder. I already know where the queen's at, and that's in the bottom.
Yep.
And if anything, I can cycle those big brood frames out over the next week or 2, or a couple of weeks, because I haven't got a phone call for Georgia, and I was talking to Lloyd today, and it looks like maybe next week we might be going. Who knows? And which was fine, because then I can come to your place,
Yep.
And do the class this coming weekend, and it'll work out. That's what I'm hoping everything works out that way. And so Queens came in last Sunday night, and I went up and picked them up this morning. Actually, I ordered 6, and then I had called back. I can get a couple more, and he said, yeah. So I got to thinking about him. I had space here. I said, okay, I had one hive that was queenless down in the honey area. I put a queen in there. I made them other splits. I put all the other queens. I had this number 6 queen. I said, well, shoot, I can go down there to them Demery hives and go in there and on them top of them brood frames that I pulled up there with the cap and see what I got. And so some of them had brood, some of them were empty, had nectar in them and things like that, a little bit of honey. So I made up a split right. I just pulled that out of the one hive. I said, it's good enough. I got other brood frames we can put down in the bottom when it's time to bring it up from the top bottom. And I filled them back up with foundation. I said, they can make me wax comb as far as I'm concerned. And I took it down there. Well, what was really nice was I had a ProNuke, and it was empty. And I took the bees off the inner cover and I shook them into ProNuke, which they were nurse bees. They just sat there. Took those frames of bees out with brood and different stages, somewhat, with nectar. And then all I did was walk down there, put them in my regular nuke box, put the queen cage in there, and closed them up. And I'm like, and of course, I closed the front end up too to just kind of hold them in there for a few days. And I said, well, that was the easiest darn split I ever made. So I had another. That brought me up to 8, and I got another extra queen. I'm like, okay, I got a 10 framer. I've got my cell builder here, nuke, and I got enough space. I could put another nuke for now at the end, or I can turn it into a honey hive. later on. So I went, like I say, went back and got 2 more queens, which brought me up to 8 queens I bought, and went down the Demaree hives. I took three splits out of the Demarees, and just dropped the queens in, and I'm done. So now I got about, well, total count would be 27 hives. I'm down 1 less, and maybe, I don't know whether the cell builder or stay as a cell builder or just what, but I got enough, everything spaced out, where it's workable.
Yeah. How much
And
grafting you planning on doing this year?
how much grafting?
Yeah.
Well, I got to requeen all them highs this year. There's going to be 16, 17 of them.
Okay.
And then I'll sell some queens. I'm figuring
Oh,
on,
okay. So you're going to sell queens as well.
yeah, instead of selling nukes, I'll sell queens.
There you go.
It's I can be in complete control of that.
Yeah, and when you look at it, what you have to invest in these bees to sell nukes, and what you have to invest in the bees to sell queens, the return on your investment is better with a queen than it is a nuke.
Yeah, only thing I'm losing is a queen cage.
Right. And they're $1 a piece.
Yeah. Versus I was losing 5 frames of drawn wax.
Yep. Drawn comb.
Drawn comb.
Yep.
And they're, what's a frame? $3-4 a piece. That's $20 there.
But if you add
and then you got to add you got to add an easy nuke in there. What not?
Yep.
I had a,
and that's 20.
That's
they're $20.
They're about damn $20 in cardboard boxes.
Yep. And then the frame with the drawn comb on it is worth more than $3 or $4 because of the drawn comb on it. So that's kind of a.
You figure you probably have an investment in a nuke with the cardboard box or the easy nuke. Well, the easy nuke is $20 at least.
Yeah.
And you got 5 frames of drawn wax with the bees and a queen.
Yep. I'd figure $20 a frame on that. That's $100 right there. Because you got to invest your sugar. You buy sugar.
Well, I medicated them at night over the winter time. I fed them over the winter time.
Yep.
And all that stuff, and fretted and sweated and worried over this stuff all year, all winter. I get $200 a nuke, and then they go out and kill it within 6 months to a year. The keeper does. The new keeper does.
Yeah, but see that $200, half of it's already gone. Just talking about the drawn comb, half of it's gone.
Well, I would make, let's say, a couple $1,000. The best I've ever did was $4,000 in a year, season.
Yep.
I spent that much money in input cost in a season.
At least.
Depending on what year it was, I averaged at least $4,000 to $5,000 worth of input costs.
Yeah, every bit of it.
All the time. You're always buying frames. You're always
buying frames, buying nukes, buying bees, something. You're always buying something, right?
You're buying some queens occasionally,
Yep.
So I got tired of dealing with the public, the new beekeeper, getting them there. They did not understand the I get very I get that. It's like when I get a queen, I get that queen, and that queen's in that hive today.
Yep.
Within the hour or two.
Yep.
Okay. Because I've had a queen at the time, $25, die on my office table here because I didn't get it out there within a day or two. And I don't know how people handle that. I'm frantic. When I put those bees in a cardboard box, I'm looking at a heat problem and all that. And I'm like, get them darn bees in a big box so they can breathe and
And they can eat.
well, regulate themselves,
Yeah.
better.
Yep.
I get real frantic about that. And like today, I picked up the original first. I went out, picked up six cage queens. This year they did have attendance in them. Last year they didn't. And I came right down. I probably, yeah, McKee, that's about right. I had a guy
Yep.
2 years ago came in, got 2 nukes. Well, I'll put them in tomorrow. I says, you got, and this is like at 6 o'clock, okay? And I said, you got an hour and a half before dark. You get all you have to do is 15 minutes worth of work of putting 5 frames and 5 frames. Just pull 5 out, put 5 in, you're done. And shake the bees in the box in the hole or put them in the front so they crawl up out of there. I said, don't sit there and tell me that you can't get them in here today. They don't understand the urgency of this. And I just, I can't deal with that. And, or I'll have like, you need 6 nukes. And I says, well, be here. So, well, I got to go to the hockey game, or it's like the hell with the hockey game. Bees are here. You take care of bees.
Yeah. They'll be in the trees by tomorrow at noon.
Hey,
Yep.
it's like, you got hay cut down. Well, you're going to get bale hay. You ain't going to the park or the ball game.
Or the swimming pool.
You got hay to get in. That's all there is to it.
Yep.
And maybe that's because, I was brought up that way, and, that's the way it is with me and bees.
Yep.
And, so anyway, I put them 6 queens in right quick. It didn't take me an hour. If it took me that long, maybe a half an hour. I mean, some of it was getting some stuff together. Probably only took me about, I don't know, let's say an hour or less. And because I had to make up a few nukes or a few splits at the time. And so then I called back up. I was going to get me 2 more because that was so darn easy to make that one split off of that Demaree. I'm like,
Yep.
shoot, because everything was done for me. Because all, the queen, everything was above the queen excluder. You knew where the queen was. You didn't have to look for nothing. You had a pile of bees up there on it. And I'm like, okay, shake the bees off the inner cover, give them extra bees,
Yep.
5 frames with bees. Queen is 50 wax frames, 10 drone, and brood, $100 box. $200.
$100 box. Where are you buying your nuke boxes? Oh, box of 20 frames, 50 wax frames. And 10 drone.
Yeah, $220. I was getting $200, so I quit that. But anyway,
Yeah.
that was the best thing I ever did this year. I don't have all that stress. I have enough stress as it is for myself, but I didn't have to deal with nobody. I didn't have to have a deadline to get things done.
Yep.
And so I went back up and got 2 more nukes or 2 more queens, and come back down and made up 2 more splits. And I had to go downstairs and get some hardware cloth. I have a roll of it, 1/8 inch, and you put you make a 4 inch, you take a 4-inch strip and you make a V and shove it in the front entrance.
Yep.
And had to cut up a couple of them for the entrance and just to lock them up. got that done and got the splits done, and did a little bit of cleanup with extra comb and stuff. Been letting the bees, rob out all this stuff. And so when I did my original 2 splits on those 2 nukes there, it's like I was telling Scott how to do a split with the queen excluder. Well, Charlie doesn't take his own advice. Oh, that's just a nuke. I can find that queen, just no problem at all.
Yeah, sure.
And you got a ton of bees in there. If you know how my hives are. They're as much as them bees behind your head there.
Mine are the same way.
And well, actually, I did do that. I started to try to find the queen. I got so doggone. Hey, Mark.
Mark's in the bee yard.
How y'all doing, Charlie? Bill?
Good.
Yeah, we're doing good.
Good deal. Good deal.
What are you playing with tonight?
I mean, at a big mating box area there
Oh,
on them pictures and stuff.
oh yeah, yeah. I've been releasing some virgins this evening. I had a little time, so I got some released.
That's good.
So you just what? Are you putting them in the mating box? Then you say, Mark, you're walking them in or what?
It was just some extras that I had, Charlie, and I let them hatch out in a roller cage.
Right.
And I didn't put no attendants with them or nothing. I just tossed them in with my builder.
Yeah.
And I come back about 6 days later, I think, and took the caps off and put some caps with sugar on it, with candy in it. And then I introduced them about 4 days ago, 3 or 4 days ago. So I went back today and made sure they were all released. 3 of them wasn't. So just got that done.
Well, now so you take a virgin and you put it through a releasing process like a mated queen. Are you there, Mark? Flip that thing around to where we get a better view. You there? There we go. So you introduce a virgin like you do a mated queen. You there?
Well, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Well, I'd already had a mate nuke set up, and they had already tried to build a queen, and I went back and tore them down before I ever put the virgins in there.
Yeah, I get that.
And I just didn't have time. It was late one Sunday, and I had to go to work, so I just tossed them in the cell builder. Never did put attendants in there with them or nothing. Cell builder took care of them for 6 days, and then when I finally got around to it a while ago, I just released them. I'd already had them in there for 3 or 4 days anyway. Most of them they went ahead and released.
Yeah, because I mean, when I do the virgins, he's gone.
No, he's not. I got him right there.
I'm trying to get up here where I can.
Yeah, there you go. You're getting back. You're frozen. Switch the screens around, Bill, to where like the normal thing. No. There you go.
I'm getting closer.
Yeah, you are.
I mean, when I do mine, the queens come out of the. I let them emerge in the incubator. I'll just take them out there, a 2-frame mating box that's set up. I'll just let her walk on in there, and I don't seem to have any problems with that. Now you say you put them in the hair roller cage with candy and let them eat that plug out and let them release her that way?
Yeah, I did that bunch just because I was too lazy to put them in a JCBC cage. Didn't have time.
Yeah, but I mean, do you think they need to be introduced like that, or I figure they don't have the pheromone smell. A lot of them don't really recognize them as a regular queen. They know that she's a queen, but they know she's not mated.
Well, they didn't have no other choice. Either
Mm.
way it was. So, you know, they didn't have nothing to make a queen out of.
Right.
Yeah.
So you got, what is it,
Uh,
50 or 60 mated queen or mating boxes out there on that power line area?
I've got somewhere around 60, Charlie.
Hmm.
I've got, they're all loaded. Some of them's got swarm cells. Most of them's got cells.
Hmm.
So anyway,
Yeah,
I've got enough.
that's like the
Got
guys down there in Georgia. When they put those queen boxes, they put a cell in there, and a couple
Yeah.
bees and all that stuff.
Right. I counted my sales a while ago. I got about 60 or so coming off Sunday or Tuesday tomorrow.
Hmm.
So I've been busy. Thank goodness Matt come down and helped me split. That helped the old man out a little bit.
Is that the older guy that wasn't getting that is coming to help you that does the grafting or something?
No, that's Dwayne. He comes by every Tuesday and helps me graft. He had to go to Memphis today to get some stents put in, so he won't be here tomorrow.
Yeah. Mark's froze again.
Yep.
He hadn't got that. What is it? The wireless extended
Yeah.
far enough.
I hear birds.
Huh?
You have birds, Charlie?
Have a what?
Do you have a bird?
A bird? Nah, it's a damn. Let me go close the door. It's a damn dryer. It needs a grease job.
You back, Mark?
I'm trying. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. Hear you loud and clear.
I promise you, the next time you see me on here, that ain't gonna happen no more. I'm tired of that.
You got to get that there Wi-Fi thing set up.
Yeah, you
I'm
need a,
fixing to get one of them farm and ranch
Wi-Fi
deals,
booster.
you know.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get me a farm and ranch. I'm gonna extend that thing across 50 acres if I can.
Hmm.
Farmer Ranch, what's it? Wi-Fi of some sort?
Yeah, they make them for the farm, you know.
Yeah, they make a booster.
Oh, okay.
Hey, Nancy.
I'm gonna get a start on it anyway. Get me
Hey,
where
Nance.
where one connect to the other,
Yeah.
Okay.
connect to the other, you know. Get one
Yeah.
anyway. I've been battling with a tooth all week. They pulled that tooth, and oh my goodness, that hurt. Oh, I ain't felt like doing a whole lot. I was trying to get caught up on everything. Everybody got to be fed.
Yep.
All the usual stuff.
Yeah. All the usual stuff. You're right.
It don't ever all get done, I don't think, does it?
Nope. I've never gotten it all done yet. I've been trying to for 63 years, and I still haven't gotten it all done.
Do you find the older you get, the more you procrastinate on going out there and doing it?
No, I find the older I get, the more shit there is for me to do.
Do you procrastinate about doing it?
No.
I
go get it
procrastinate
done.
more. The older I am, the more I procrastinate.
Yeah, I just go get it done because I know when I get done with that, there's something else waiting for me to do.
There you go. Everything's a priority. Get the priorities first.
Well, if everything is a priority, I'll never get done.
Yeah.
Hey,
Oh
Matt.
man.
I had to replant my sweet corn. I didn't know I was going to get 14 inches rain.
Mm.
What, to
Got
wash it
that
out?
done. Yeah, it's like a river running through my garden.
Uh,
So
I
is
got
that
that
what
done.
you got 14 inches?
13.68 or something like that. That 1 week.
Yeah, I've seen where on the news, where they showed the different flooding and all that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a mess around here. It's drying up now, though.
yep.
Poplars blooming. Blackberries just started blooming today that I've noticed. I mowed a lot yesterday and I didn't see any, but today I'm seeing them.
Matt from Moore's Homestead, Mark, he wants to know if are you shipping mated queens this spring?
I don't know yet. I'm going to see how it goes first. I ain't
Okay.
promising nothing till I figure out what happens. It's been a rough year, I'll tell you. And it's just now planing out. And I've got a lot of requeening I'm going to do to get myself back to where I want to be.
Yep.
And that comes first. And then what's left over, I'll keep running them as long as I can run them.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know. It seemed like the season's definitely late for us, or it's later than what it has been in past years.
Yeah.
At least it feels like it anyway. It's just starting to get warm here, where it's 50 at night and 70 during the day. I don't know
Yep.
how long it's going to last, but that's good grafting weather now, I think.
Yeah.
I think we've kind of turned a corner there, Charlie.
We're turning
Yeah, but
it.
remember we talked about this, Bill, a month ago that we were looking at April and it was like, well, there ain't going to be any good weather until almost the 1st of May.
Well, here it is, almost the 1st of May.
And their, month forecast of the weather, they had it pretty much right.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir. I remember a year like this, but it seems like it was about 6 or 7 years ago.
Yeah, we've had some like this in the past.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping the forecast for tonight holds true to form because they're calling for some rain. I turned a bunch of ground today, and I need to run a disc over it tomorrow the second time. So I got my fingers crossed it's going to rain a little bit tonight.
Yeah,
So,
maybe you'll get a little bit. What's y'all's
yeah,
nighttime temperature right now?
tonight it's supposed to be 60.
It's about
Yeah,
like us.
it's 60 degrees.
Yeah.
And then
It
tomorrow night,
wasn't, it was warm today, but it was sort of overcast, or I don't know.
yeah,
It
it was
just,
a little overcast. You could tell it was going to. They have the forecast right. You could tell it's going to rain at some point tonight. So,
yeah.
and tomorrow night they're saying it's only going to be in the 40s. But after that, I'm looking all the way up through into May, and I don't see anything in the 30s. The lowest I see is a 43. The first Monday and Tuesday of May, and then it goes up from there. So I'm thinking we've kind of turned a corner.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the rest of this week is 50 and then like 75, you might say, throughout the rest of the week.
Yep.
Oh yeah, y'all turn the corner for sure.
And
Yep.
It'll
it's
start
raining
looking
out.
better.
Is it raining down there where you're at right now, Bill?
It was raining while we were eating supper.
Yeah, you're down. Let's see. There's Newmarket, Mount Jackson, Woodstock. Yeah, it's showing on the radar. It's right south of you.
Yep.
And I got a big slug of rain. There's a little bit that came through already. I don't know whether it actually rained out there. And then there's a big, pretty good storm around Frederick. So, and we'll get something maybe.
Hi, guys.
Nancy.
Hey,
Hi,
Nancy.
Nancy.
I'm not turning my camera on because I'm in bed. So
Well, that'll be interesting.
Already?
I thought I'd chat. Yeah, I go early. I get ready early, but so I thought I'd come on and yak a little bit. I'm gonna try to do my Wednesday night this week, and so I wanted to say that. But so last Monday I had my state inspection. So the guy comes out, he pulls a bunch of frames, and my hives were behind, of course, but they were hungry. So he guilted me into feeding, which I really didn't want to do because I'm burned out on feeding from last year. So I started feeding, and they took down a half a gallon every 12 hours for the first 2 days. And then a couple of them petered off, but there's maybe 3 or 4 down there that are just sucking it down. So I'm gonna go in tomorrow, which would be day 8, and see if there's any, disturbances or any queen cells started. If we disrupted anything, or how much they're taking in the feed. So, but that's where I'm at. I think I got to hand my nuke sales off to my mentor a couple towns over. I just don't think I can. I don't think I'm going to be able to pull any nukes out of this yard this year.
What do you think, Nancy, that because of the cold weather, that she's just not producing like she normally does?
Right. So the middle of March, our maples popped, and they were getting ready to gear up and go. She was laying, and they were doing well, and then the weather turned, and they pulled her back. I mean, they cannibalized the eggs, and they're not letting her go.
It turned off cold too, Nancy, didn't it? Yeah, I had that problem.
Yeah. So it looks like today's Monday, right? So Thursday and Friday, Saturday will be our first nighttime temperatures above 50. And that's usually an indicator here in the Northeast where I'm at. You get your first 3-4 days above 50, that you're getting ready they'll cut loose for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So again,
well, I got the same thing here, Nancy, where I've been the ones at the end of the line there, where they had a lot more wind to them because I had taken their coats off.
Yeah.
They were just like, man, I was saying here a couple of weeks ago, I said, do I have a bunch of junky queens again that I need to replay?
Yeah.
And now, about 3 weeks later, things are starting to perk up.
What did I tell you 3 weeks ago when you were telling me you had crappy queens? What did I tell you?
You said weather. You said it was too cold.
Too early. Too early to determine to give a readout on queens up here. I mean, look at Keith down there, Spillman. I mean, he's pulling supers.
Yep.
Dirty dog.
I'm still putting supers on.
Yeah, I just now finished putting supers on.
Yeah, well, all mine's got supers on them, but they're not.
No,
they're not doing anything a whole lot with them.
I haven't even. I mean, I haven't even thought. I mean, I have them down. They're down in the yard. The frames are in them, and they're ready to go. They're all shined up and ready to go. But there's just Well, tomorrow, Tuesday and Wednesday are I'm gonna pull I'm gonna pop the lids and pull frames and get down in that second box and see what we got. Maybe I'll be surprised, but maybe not.
Yeah. Keeping ups and downs.
Yeah. They keep us stepping, don't they?
I've been more down so far this year than I have up. Just be honest.
Well, what's going on? Why are you down, Mark? Like, what are
My
they?
tooth, I can't hardly do anything. My tooth gets to bother me.
Oh,
I got it cut out Tuesday, and I've been on vacation for 2 weeks. This is my second week. I was
oh,
planning on getting a lot done, but that ain't happening.
mm, oh. So it's you. You can't keep up. The bees are coming along, or
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Matt Ramsbottom come down last Saturday and helped me do splits. We got like 45 done that day.
Wow.
Me, him, and Dwayne.
Yeah.
So I've done about 60ish,
Jeez.
and I've let some swarm. I've caught about 4 or 5 swarms out here.
Yeah.
Uh, that's just part of it. I can't get to all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, the tight yards, yards that are in town down towards the city, they're busting. I had created. Let's see, it was last Tuesday. I went down. So I helped a lady manage, and she busted her wrist up. So I pulled. She had two full hives, and I made 3. I split them both 2.5 times. So, and then the inspector was saying he was here. He's from the city, his yard, and he's got supers on. He's got supers on already. So that's a difference of 20 miles up here.
Yeah.
So,
Mm.
but we'll see tomorrow. I don't know. I got some doubles on, and they might be rocking and rolling. So after I fed for a week, so we'll see what if that feed really stimulated them. Maybe I can do some splits tomorrow. I don't know. But
I can do more. I just don't want to do no more.
yeah, I wish I had them to do. We gotta swap. We gotta swap. I'm ready to go,
Yeah.
and my bees are behind.
Yeah.
I'm ready to get started. So, but
I want to save some of my equipment for when these queens mate. I can take on down the line a little bit and let them nukes make more nukes. That way I can
yeah,
keep thinning them out a little and make more queens. But I don't really want to make too many at once.
yeah. I usually do some splits early, and then finish up with the summer solstice, requeening the rest of my yard. But I don't know. I mean, unless they turn around quick, I don't think I'll be doing anything till summer solstice. I'll be requeening.
Yeah.
Just hope I can sell the ones I have.
Now, where are you going to get your queens at, Nancy? From
Oh,
Ed?
Well, I was gonna get some from Ed, but I usually just requeen myself. I mean, I just open mate. I don't graft or anything. I
So you
sell them.
let them make their own queens.
Yep, yep. I do splits. We'll walk away splits. Just or
Yeah.
like so tomorrow, for instance, if I find any queen cells, I'll move them into 5 frames or whatnot, and then make my splits that way.
I got some of them too, Nancy.
Yeah. So I'm thinking about pulling some in from Ed. Ed is a buddy of ours up here that's a pretty decent queen breeder. I guess he's trying to
Yeah, I would say.
name for himself. And so he's doing the what is it, the Harbo? He does Harbo testing and
Yeah, Harbo and that other one, the UBO.
yeah.
He's well read and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I learned a lot of beekeeping from him over the years, just basic beekeeping, and then he dove off into the queens, and I didn't follow him I didn't follow him into the Queen area, but I think he basically gives his virgins away.
Mm.
So
He's losing a lot of money.
well,
I don't know. I don't know. He said he was selling virgins last year when I talked to him, and I told him, I said, yeah, but you got the drone population in your area that
mm-hmm.
is the other half of the key. He said, well, you're the first one that ever asked,
Yeah.
that kind of knew about all that. I said, well, if I want your genetics, I got to have your drones,
Yeah.
That he had developed over the course of quite a few years.
Yep.
Maybe that's what I should ask him for. 50 drones. He'll you know what he'll say to me? He said, well, yeah, you come pick them out. I'll just sit in his yard and pick them off the front porch, put them in a bag and bring them home. But yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Talk about genetics, Bill. Are you gonna get them breeder queens, Latshaw queens?
They're on the way. We got
Oh.
notified the other day. They'll be here in first week of June.
What's that? Explain that a little bit.
Some new breeders, Caucasian.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
So are they coming in a nuke, or you got to get them laying?
No, they're coming in a cage, and
So
then
you got to get them started.
We got to get them started. Yeah.
So you won't have no virgins off of them till August.
Yep, that's about right.
Hey, Tom and Melissa.
Hey, Tom, Melissa.
So what on those? What is it, Caucasians? You say?
Mm-hmm.
What's their genetic trait?
Well, the biggest one is they're bred to be gentle.
Okay.
They're very calm bees. They're very gentle bees.
Well, nobody was breeding them for a long time, right? There were just maybe one or two. You couldn't really even find them for
right.
a
They've
long
been hard
time.
to find, and so we got those coming, but they're bred, for their gentleness, laying ability, overwintering, and VHS tendencies.
All the good stuff.
All the good stuff.
What about honey production? Is that all right, or is that is that with every bee? They all.
That's with every bee. But Caucasians are prolific propolizers.
Yes, right. I remember
They
that.
build more propolis than they do wax.
They do. Sometimes can be a nightmare.
Oh, tell me about it.
Yeah, I cuss it now. Bad enough.
So my bees are already gentle, and I don't have that much propolis, so I should just stay where I'm at.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I would.
Yeah, we got gentle.
I don't understand that, Brian. What's DVD other than a CD?
DVD. What is DVD? Interesting.
Yeah, you kicked over a can of worms now, Brian.
Are like DVD tendencies.
I don't know. Yeah, that's what it is.
Oh, I was wondering if he was
VHS.
Well, y'all, it's getting dark here. I'm gonna back out and finish up what
bye,
I gotta
Mark.
get done.
All right, Mark.
See you.
Y'all have a good one, Nancy, Bill,
See ya. Hope you feel
Charlie,
better.
everybody in the chat.
All right.
Good to see you. Good to
All
see
right,
you.
Mark. You
Y'all
have a good
later.
evening.
Hope you feel better.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
me
check
too.
into this monitor thing.
Yeah.
I got this week to get it in and put it up, so I'm gonna cure this problem out here.
There you go.
Yeah. All right. Good. 'Cause
We'll talk to y'all later.
All right.
Night.
See ya.
Night.
Yeah, I looked at those farm routers, outdoors. When he mentioned it, I quick hopped on and Googled it, and it looks like you can get any from $50 to $250.
A
guess
month.
that's the farm routers, the outdoor
Yeah.
farm routers,
Yeah.
So, but I'd really like that too here, because I got an acre and a half, and I don't have any service down there. I don't have to use data when I'm down there. But
I'll trade you, Nancy.
what? What are you gonna trade me?
You come take over my land, and I'll go take over yours.
Oh, you wouldn't like the city slicking up here.
No, I wouldn't.
There'd be no place for you to drive your tractor. Well, no, I'm next to a farm. I am next to a dairy farm, but yeah.
Oh, I'd find a place to use tractor.
So I have a question for you, if nobody else has anything. So I got a question.
Go ahead.
So this is about DCAs
Okay.
and queens. Now, I know the old theory runs that, queens will fly further and faster, blah, blah, blah. But do they if they don't have to?
Yep.
How do you know?
Well, I know there's studies out there in that Cornell class I'm taking. We covered this last semester.
Oh, okay.
The queen knows that the drones in the apiary, especially in her hive, are her offspring, and they don't like to mate with the drones that are in their apiary. The drone that's in their apiary will fly up to 2.5 miles. She goes 3.5 to 4 to a DCA. How they know where these DCAs are, I don't know.
Okay.
But they go to a DCA where they know their drones are not at.
So, all right. So if you have, like me, I have, 15, 20, sometimes 30 colonies.
Mm-hmm.
So I have 30 options for drone genetics out there in the DCA that's 2.5 miles away. And so you mean to tell me that she's going to outrun that DCA with all those other drones?
Let's just, all right, I'm going to use this as an example.
Yeah.
Say that DCA that's 2.5 miles away is to the north.
Yep.
She will go either totally opposite direction or a different direction on the compass other than north to get to a DCA.
I see. I had another question on that. So there is some mechanism that the worker bees have to detect drones that are genetically close to them.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember what that's called?
Pheromone. It's a pheromone that the drone puts off that the workers are looking for.
And they pull them out.
Yep, they pull them out.
Why would they do that?
It's to prevent the cross or interbreeding is what it's there to prevent. Of course, now when she leaves to go on a mating flight, she takes attendants with her.
Yep.
All right. And they take care of her. They feed her. They groom her while she's out there. And they keep her warm while she is out there.
I know there's not much talk about that, but they gotta take a crew with them. They do. I don't think they do all that on their own. I think there's a whole retinue with them.
Yeah.
Retinue. I don't know if that's the right term, but that's the term I'm going to use.
Yeah, they do take a limited number of attendants to whatever they feel that they need.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's what they do, and they always do that. So it keeps down basically it keeps out the riffraff. Is
right.
What it does.
Right. Protects her. Sure, you're gonna take. A queen is gonna have an army, right?
Yeah.
When she leaves town, she's gonna be protected. So if I have a guy, there's a guy, he's getting kind of big. I think he's running 20 or 30 colonies, and he is north of me as the crow flies, a mile and a half, 2 miles,
Yeah.
right? Just to say, for sake of conversation. So are his drones and my drones hanging out in the same DCA? Do you
Probably.
think?
Probably.
Yeah.
See, now there's a gentleman in Pennsylvania. I won't say his name, and I won't say where he's at. He has an apiary on his farm, and he has ringed his farm 3 miles out, all the way around,
Yeah.
with his hives and his strain of queens,
Yeah.
so that when his queens are released to go get mated from his yard on his farm, there's nothing but his genetics all the way around it. So that's another way to control genetics in queen breeding.
Hmm.
So he's been keeping bees quite a while, and it's taken him 10 years to do this.
Yeah, I wonder, Pennsylvania has all different types of terrain, mountainous and then flat. So I'm
He's
just
in the Carlisle area.
Oh. Oh. Yeah, that's on the edge of the mountains.
Yep.
And then the river is going to be a lot of flat land around Carlisle.
Yep.
Carlisle's pretty flat.
Yep.
So yeah, interesting.
Yeah, so I would say that he's got the genetics cornered on his queens.
Yeah.
I know his queens are good.
Now down there at Hardiman's, they have those queen mating yards, that are underneath the trees and stuff.
Yeah.
But in those yards, they will have some 10 frame equipment. Like they'll have, let's say, 6 or 8 hives there, pretty much just for drone. I think
Flooding.
drone flooding.
Yeah.
And it's, I presume that these queens that are coming out of a cell, virgins, and they're going to mate with the drones within that yard there, because they're not related to them and all, I guess, is how that works.
Yeah, what I can't wrap my head around is how I could have 30 hives and one of them isn't going to mate with another one because they're not genetically the same. If I were a queen, I wouldn't fly 7 miles to a DCA when I can fly 2 miles to a DCA and have my pick of drones. Like it's just that connection isn't resonating with me.
Well, you figure if they're going to fly 3.5 miles out, they're out there 5 to 7 days.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not going out and back. It's not a one trip in one round trip in one day. They're out there.
Oh, see, okay. So I don't know that part. I thought they went out and came back and then gathered their strength, fed, whatever, decided, do I have enough? Don't I have enough? And then went back out again.
No, they mate with up to 50 drones.
Yeah. But they do that. They don't come back refreshed
until they're mated. Because
Well,
they come back, they're in that hive, period. They don't, because if you had a mating yard and you go out there and let's say you're out there on Tuesday and you come back on Thursday morning and there's a queen in there, you're going to assume that she's mated or fully, quote unquote, fully mated. Well,
yeah.
if she's come back to feed, recharge, and go back, then you may only get a partially mated queen. So I truly do believe, in everything I've read, all the videos I've watched, that queen stays out there. She's gone 5 to 7 days to become fully mated.
I do.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Doesn't the drones have enough gas where they can go out so far like an airplane, and they got to turn around and come back
Half
home?
an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah, they go out for half an hour and come back, or abouts. If you mark a bunch of drones with a marking pen, and then you turn around and wait for them to come back, they have them track in about a half an hour.
Yep.
So wait, so you said something back there. So if they're gone 5 to 7 days,
Mm-hmm.
that's the elements. They have to brave the elements.
That's why they have attendants with them to keep them warm.
To be a little swarm, perhaps.
Yeah, they ball up on her to keep her warm.
No, I have seen videos where when she's mated, and different ones have talked about this, when she's coming back to the hive, mated, that she's got a comet of, I think that's what they call
drones.
it.
Yeah,
comet of bees coming back with her to the hive.
Yep.
Because
so
Fred smell
Fred,
her pheromones through the air.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now,
Fred
is it
has
female or
that video.
male though?
The Fred has the video of the drones, of the drone comet coming back, because he came upon one of his colonies and it had probably 1,000 drones, and he's like, "What the heck?" And then he determined that was the comet that followed her back. So that leads me to believe that, they hooked onto her scent, or there's a DCA nearby and they just happened to follow her home the last, 2 miles or whatever.
Yeah.
But that's Fred Dunn that has that video.
So Brian had a good comment. Wait, what? I've never heard that before. They always return to the hive. Yeah, they return to the hive after they're mated. If we check our mating nukes daily, and we know the day she leaves, and we know the day she comes back. She's gone from 5 to 7 days.
Wow. You know what? I want to pay attention to that more this year. I want to figure out, I want to take 2 hives and requeen them into 5 frames just so they're easier, and find out, really write down when the day she leaves, and then check them every single day and see how long she's out there over here.
Yeah.
That's a little project. It's a little project I'm going to do this year.
Yeah. Would you check her in the evening, like at 4:30 or something like that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Check them in the evening.
She's going to come back, and if she comes back, it'll be in the evening before sunset.
It'll be before sunset.
I did see one time in one of my hives where you could tell it was a queen, and she come flying in, and I said, "What? There's a queen flying, coming back from a mated flight, that she flew into the nuke."
Was she tagged? Did you see her tag?
Nah, I don't know what I had to paint. That was been several years ago.
I saw one come back with the tag on. I saw her fly in with the tag. So, of course, I ripped open the lid and went down and looked at her again. She was in there walking around. So they were getting ready to get that last tag out of her. But yeah, I just, it's just so amazing. I mean, I just wish we had more evidence and more, video or. So then the question is, why would you drone flood? What's the concept behind drone flooding?
Well,
I've never understood that anyway. To drone flood.
Well, when the drone mates with the queen, it's whoever is the fastest and the best in it.
Yep.
Right. So if you
and
drone
then she
flood
mates with him, and then she's waiting for the next guy to hit her.
Right, but drone flooding for me, if I'm going to use the resources from my hives to drone flood, it's going to be to benefit me. I mean, well, I don't want to drone flood for the guy down the street. So if drone flooding is really, and that's Mohan, Julia Mohan, and I have access to her. She's the big drone lady, but I got to ask her, like, I mean, why am I drone? Why would you drone flood if it doesn't benefit your own apiary?
Right.
And I want to see what her science is behind that.
The
I
only
do know.
time that we raise an abundance of drones is from mid-June to the end of July, first part of August. That's because we don't open mate, we tent mate, and we need the drones in the tent. And we have drones in an out yard that we bring into that netting for mating purposes.
Yeah,
They're
see, I don't have
unrelated to any of the queens. They're unrelated to any of the breeder queens, period. They're unrelated to any of them. And we bring them in and we call it closed mating.
So I'm convinced I have a DCA. It just fits all the things. It's the drop in elevation. It's a tree line. It's open field, and then I have that, and then I also have a quarry. That's within, I don't know, yards, 500 yards. It's a football field away, maybe a little more, and that has the depths. The ranges of deep crevices and whatnot, trees, and so I don't know. I'm just convinced that I have some healthy DCAs around me.
Yeah, I'm sure you do with as many beekeepers as you have around you. And I think
Well,
you and I have talked about that before, because the area where you live, the bee club is huge. And if everybody's got bees in that area,
but
then
that's not me. That's Chester County, and that's a good hour away from me. Here
yeah,
where I'm at, there. So what happens with me here is I have people that get into it. They get two packages. They buy woodenware. They lose in the first year. They buy packages. They don't get them through the winter the second year, and then they get rid of. They're no longer. So I don't have any real consistent, except the new guy. This new guy here now, he's, I think, in his third year, and he's doing well. But other than that, I don't have any consistent beekeeper. I have people around me that have one or two hives, but
yeah.
nothing, no significant. Not to give me the queens that I get. I mean, I just don't think. Well, yeah. So in
Well,
Chester, like I talked. Hmm.
if you think about it, look how many drones one hive produces.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm just going to use this as a round figure. Let's say one hive produces 1,000 drones.
Right.
So you figure 500 of those drones, roughly half, are probably going to leave to go to a DCA.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So you still have 500 drones in a hive, but now you have 500 of those drones. If you have two hives, that's 1,000
Yeah.
that
There
leave to
you
go
go.
to a DCA.
Yeah.
Anything, I mean, if one or two hives, that's a contribution to a DCA.
Yeah, but they're not gonna drone. They're gonna have barely any drones around all their foundation frames. You
Yeah.
can't get decent drones out of that. But
Like I said, I was just using that to make the math easy.
no, I got you. You just made me think. Yep, I'm just thinking.
Yep.
But yeah. So I don't know. I just never want for a queen here. I mean, they always come back mated, and they always are good layers and give me, they're just all real quality queens. And I just find that hard to believe that's coming from packages here and there. But who knows?
It could. I mean, you don't know. I mean, I've got some package bees sitting down here in the apiary now, and
Mhm.
she's I put in 2 frames of drawn comb, and she took off laying, and half of one of those frames is nothing but drone.
Yeah. Okay.
So if you figure, just to make the math easy again, let's
Sure.
just say that one whole side of that drawn comb is 1,500 cells. If she lays 1,500 drone cells in one day, that's 750 drones
Mm-hmm.
that you've got a potential to go to a DCA.
Sure. Sure.
I know several years back you had the Skinny Bee Man, and he hooked up with, I think it's Jason up there at the New River Queen Breeders up in
Yep.
West Virginia.
Yeah.
And at that time, and this is back, Nancy, back when
Yeah.
I think Keith Jourdain they were flying balloons around trying to find DCAs in Chevy. That's been a while. And I posted on the Facebook page, I said, you guys have got to get up to date. I says, this is when drones were just starting to come out.
Yeah.
And they took a wire and they glued a queen,
Pheromone.
a live queen
Oh,
to
well,
the-
yeah. They. Yeah.
to that
yeah.
wire, and they flew that drone around to find where the DCAs were,
Yeah.
and next to tree lines and water lines
Yep,
and
yep.
hills
Yep.
and all that. They did find it wasn't too far. It wasn't no mile away from the hive where his hives were, but
Mhm.
he's of course he in artificial inseminates a lot now. That's all he does. But actually, some of his queens were mated. He's seen some of them mated right in the same yard where they came from. So
Yes.
I was
See,
in the same yard.
I am just not bought into that older theory. I think there's so I want to get my hands on a real drone, a drone like a an airplane drone. What do we call them? Like the mechanical drones.
Yeah, the little helicopters I call
Little
them.
helicopters, and then put on the string with the queen pheromone, not a real queen, and fly that around a little bit and see how close. Because I'm not. I mean, I know what people are saying, but the fact that I just don't think a queen is going to expend the energy if she doesn't have to.
Well, I think Dr. Underwood, she did that. They're flying drones or helicopters up there and finding DCAs. They're not, the balloon thing is antique as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the mechanical drones now that Julia Mahood is in this drone class that I have.
Yeah.
It's just the drone class that I'm in, there's not a real time to ask questions. Like, how we can talk here, we just talk about stuff. It's not like that. It's at the end, if there's extra time, we might, have a couple questions, but it's, I wish we just take a whole class and just do questions like this,
Well,
talk.
it's just like we talked about our queens and how late they're acting.
Mhm.
And we're talking about the coldness and stuff like that. And then I was thinking about, we bounced this off the wall last week about being a Demaree, you're making that queen work, I'll say twice as much maybe, or a third much more. And am I pushing her to where it's like me being in the deep South where Cajun Homestead is in Louisiana?
Yeah.
Where am I wearing that queen out
Too early.
faster? Where I need to be requeening on a yearly basis versus every 2 years.
I requeen every year. I think I mean,
I'm really starting. I was talking to Lloyd about it today, and he kept saying, you need to go. You might want to consider once a year, and compare. Well, of course, I'm still comparing it from last year, and the weather's different.
Yeah.
But when I put them fresh queens in them hives, and they were a lot sorrier looking shape than they are right now, as far as population goes. And they went from a little teeny piece of brood like that on 1 or 2 frames to multiple frames of corner to corner slab brood when I put that fresh girl in there. And I'm like, if I'm wanting my level of consistency across the board in all the highs, sounds like to me I need to be pushing in fresh queens every year.
So the first half of the year, you sell out your overwintered queens as nukes. Sell those overwintered queens in nukes, or either in the 2 frame sets, because you have a big club down there. You could get the market, and then the other half you sell as, so those people that are convinced they don't have a queen in July, get rid of some there, and then do your summer solstice. Do the rest with summer solstice. You
mean in June 21st, put new queen in?
Yeah, that right. You would start requeen.
Well, like I say, when I quit selling nukes this year, it's been the best thing ever done. I expanded my honey production yard to keep up with demand, and I'm going to say somewhere around 8 to 10 nukes now for my own insurance, as far as replacing dead outs.
So those are resource hives.
Or resource hives.
Those are resource hives. So you didn't sell any. You didn't sell off any of your overwintered queens and
now.
Yeah.
No.
Oh.
So Nancy, I think I got something that may answer your question.
Okay.
It's from a publication called The Apiarist.
Yep.
Okay. And it covers queen mating flights.
Mm-hmm.
So,
what's the date on it? What's the date on it?
Hold on a minute.
I don't want nothing from 19 anything.
20 February 11th, 2022.
All right, that's okay.
So it's recent. So they did the research, and they found that, and this research analysis showed that 90% of all matings occurred within 4.6 miles, which is 7.4 kilometers. Only 50% were within 1.5 miles, 2.4 kilometers of the queen originating hive.
So 50% of them were a mile and a half.
And 90% of them occurred at 4.6 miles.
Okay, so 10% and 90%.
Yes.
Share that article. You know how to share it, right?
Yep.
So you did have 10% of the queens. So those we'll call them wimpy queens. That went a mile and a half. And then you had 90% of the queens, which went the long haul, the 4 miles. Oh. I know this is a topic that needs a lot more research and a lot more field studies on, and that's why it's interesting to me, because I'm curious to see how this is really gonna.
So right here, that's where it's written 90% of all matings occurred at 4.6 miles. And 50% occurred at 1.5 miles.
Okay, let me read.
Now, this article states that the queens are gone from 1 to 5 days.
Wish I could take a picture of that screen. Okay.
I'll send you a link to the article.
Actually, if you my internet's blinking off and on.
I'll send you a link.
Or is it your internet?
No, it's not mine.
Oh, because my screen
you got a black screen.
Yeah, my screen just went black.
Hold on. There you go. There we go.
Just put it. I wonder if you can put it in the chat. That way other people can see it too. Can you drop it in the chat?
I don't know if it'll let me. Paste. There, it's in the chat.
What's high ripple effect? I'm just looking at the comments now. If they didn't breed in the same yards, you would never have to worry about inbreeding. Yeah, and they can sniff out the inbred. They can sniff out the drones that are too inbred and then pull them out. Let me see if I click on that now in the chat. Dang nabbit. All right.
So, and 50% of the queens that were mated in 1.6 miles or 2.4 miles, 4.6 kilometers. No, 4.6 kilometers is 7 point whatever miles. So if the queens were mated within a mile and a half of the originating hive, that would make sense that they're mating with their own drones. Okay.
Or mating with the drones that are next to their hive.
Exactly.
That they didn't have anything that they're not genetically connected to at all.
Yep. So, that you're right, Brian. He is from Scotland. That's where the Apiarist is published, is from Scotland. But it's research on queens because they attach radio transmitters to the queens. That's how they know how far they went and how long they were gone. I don't think anybody's ever tried to do that here in the States.
Oh, what's his name up in Cornell, but he's retired now.
Yeah, he's retired.
Seeley. Tom
Seeley, yeah. Yeah.
I think he did something like that.
Yeah. I don't know, but I will find out. So.
Hi, Charlie. I have a question. How do you keep your nuke small? If I start a nuke, it grows out a bit, usually by July. Well, then it would be wouldn't be.
Then you'd move it into a full hive.
Yeah, and that's a good thing. You want that to happen.
Yeah. And then you feed the snot out of it all fall long until they won't take any more, and you add a super to it.
Well, Matt, you pull them resources out of there. That's why. Yep. I mean, you keep knocking it back by pulling resources, i.e. brood frames out, putting in, you could either put in main thing with a nuke is if it's in the honey season, keep throwing foundation frames in there and let them make wax for you.
Yeah.
And they'll also make honey for you. But if they're getting to where they're going to get ready to swarm, pull those brood frames out of there. And then you can either make a split off of that if it isn't too late in the year. And let's say your nukes, blah, 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 by July. If it's around June and it's getting to the point where they're going to swarm in July, if you'll make a split in June, and if you can get yourself a mated queen at that time, or
just make your own
queens by just making a walkaway split with make sure she got eggs in there, open brood with eggs for sure. You don't have to wait till July. I guess what I'm saying is when it gets up to the point where it's big enough to be able to survive in one box, and you can take the other box, if you're doing deeps, let's say, and you can take that other deep off that's got eggs in it, put it on a stand. Now you got two nukes, one with the queen, one that'll make a queen, and it's got enough time to build up and be ready for wintertime. So you don't wait, like I say, you don't wait till July. I would say June. Do it in June, or find some mated queens in the area in June.
You're better off doing a mated queen, because if you let them make a queen the end of June and into July, your dragonflies are real bad and your birds are really bad.
Yeah, that's true.
So you got to be careful when you do that. You really,
Or,
really
or
careful.
you just keep pulling brood out and put another big hive or something like that.
Yep. Or you combine it with a bigger hive. Or a weaker
Just put
hive
it in
that
a
has a
put their
weak queen,
five.
combine it with a weak hive.
Just put your five frame into a 10 frame or an 8 frame. Like
Yeah,
you
well,
don't
that's what I did.
you don't.
Some,
The idea is not to keep them in a 5 frame forever. It's just to get them started and expand them by July into a 10 frame, so that they can have enough resources to get through the winter, right?
yeah, I always left them in 5 frames. So I was going to sell 5 frames, But if you look at most beekeepers, they take a split out of a 10 frame
Yes, that's what I
make
do.
to make a nuke.
I take a 5 frame out of an 8 frame, and then the whatever's left over, I just combine with another
Yeah.
colony that's
But
gonna make honey for me.
I watched Michael Palmer when he was hot and heavy, and he was bringing an old idea, making an old idea new again, which was nukes, because everybody got out of nukes, and we're just doing 10 frame, and they forgot the how to do things like that. And then I got into it and I started making nukes. And that's the thing about nukes. You put them in a small box, they do better. If you ever buy a package of bees, put it in a nuke.
5 frame. 5 frame.
Put it in a 5 frame.
Yeah.
That's what is a nuke. A nuke's 5 frames. Didn't you know that, Nancy? So put it in 5 frames and put it in foundation if you don't have no wax, and they'll draw that out perfectly. And of course, you're feeding it with sugar water. And then when they get that done and they got eggs laid in there, put another one on with foundation. It's a foundation factory.
Yeah.
It's a bee factory because if you keep the cluster tight.
Yeah.
It's if you start watching your big 10 frame hives. Where are the bees at? The bees are in the center. How many frames are they? Average 5 to 6 frames wide. The rest of the bulk, and that's where the bulk of the bees are. If they're growing, and the outer frames are kind of minimal amount of bees. And like the Fat Bee Man used to say, all you got there in that nuke is a rectangular tree. And you keep growing it up, because bees go up.
Yeah.
They don't go out.
Yeah.
And they will finish those 5 frames every time you put a new box of foundation on. And they'll finish it efficiently. And then you can manipulate that hive. You can like I did today. I had 5 over 5. What did I do?
Yep.
All right. I took all the bees down, put the queen excluder on, I had a box on top that had the brood and the frames I wanted it, put it back on, came back. You could come back in 20 minutes, or when I did, it was in the evening. I came back the next day. All the bees, the nurse bees are up top. You had a nice population of bees that was just right for a split. You pick that box up, go over here, set it on another base, and put a lid on it. And I always cage them up for a while or lock them up so they stay there. And with nurse bees, it's not too bad. And especially if you got brood in there, especially open brood, it's not bad. They won't leave. And anyway, I mean, that's the power of the mighty nuke. I mean, it just, I don't know. People told me one time I put a 3-pound package in a medium nuke box, 5 frame. And they won't fit in there. I said, they sure did. It was one of them cold, rainy, sort of misty days.
Yeah.
Put it in there and put the queen cage in there. And then, it was from a package years ago, and it worked great. And all.
Where's Will at?
I'm having technical difficulties, guys. I can't get
Oh.
my camera to work.
He's caught inside one of them nuke
He's-
boxes over there.
Yeah, he's
I'm
caught inside
inside.
that storm trap.
Yeah.
Well, we know what
Yep.
we know what you look like. Did you go down south then? Or when is that trip down south you were taking?
Wednesday.
I leave Wednesday morning.
Oh, okay, so it didn't happen yet.
Yep.
Are they?
Alright.
They're what? 10 frames, Will?
Yeah, they're 10 frames on two-way pallets. Center
Is that
block
your
underneath.
backyard? Is that your backyard or what?
Nah, that's one of my little bee yards that I set up at a buddy of mine's place.
Put that in
last-
behind it's like a
last summer.
shopping center back there.
That actually looks down over the river onto Harrisburg International Airport. So it's up on the ridge looking out across the river out over top of.
I thought that
Actually-
was water. I could see that.
Yeah.
I can see that that's a river there.
Is that a
Yes.
river? It looked
That's
like a building to
blue.
me.
Blue is the river. The stones and the blue. That's a river back there.
Yep.
Okay.
And then off in the distance, there's like Middletown area.
Where's 3 Mile Island?
Down to the right, if you turned, so the way that we're staring right there, if you turn to about 2:00, you'd
Yep.
be staring at the towers.
All right. 'Cause I worked there. I worked at
Okay.
3 Mile Island.
So they
Back
actually have they got an airport up there?
Yeah, at
Yeah,
Harrisburg Airport, they have an Air Force, I think an Air Force guard base there, and that used to be one of the thickest, longest strips on the East Coast. It's kind of crazy, actually. Air Force One, well, he's not on it, but the plane does practice touch and goes there.
Yeah,
usually
well, it's like
several
down
times
here.
a year.
It's like down here at Aberdeen when I worked down there. Air Force One would come in and do touch and goes all day long. People
Yep.
say, it's like, well, they say, what do you mean, what airport? And I said, well, it's one of them things you don't know about.
But that's a big plane. It's pretty cool to see it going in and out.
That's a
Yeah.
it's like a regular 747 jet or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, it's huge.
But it's a lot more powerful. I was working 3 Mile when Bush came. When Bush came a year after 9/11, and we were all waiting for him because that's what we did. And that plane, when it was facing you, you couldn't hear it. It was all of a sudden there, and
Yep.
you couldn't hear it. It just was massive, and then it landed, and then you could hear it. And then when it took off, you could hear that thing. I swear, for 20 minutes. You could hear that. It was like no other plane I've ever heard before. That one.
Yeah. That's like when I was in the firehouse down here, right next door is the high school. And that's when Reagan flew in with the choppers. And we had, I think there was 5 choppers that flew into the football field.
Yeah.
The Sikorsky's, I guess is there, the double
Yeah.
wingers.
Uh-huh.
And
Yeah,
a lot
the
of them
Chinooks.
were like, huh?
The
Chinook?
chip hooks. The
Yeah.
Chinooks.
Well, anyway, then it's amazing. All the darn White House press comes along with them and everything else, all that. And then the night before, of course, they're checking out phone lines and doing all this different stuff before he ever even gets there, weeks ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
And then the firehouse is next door. Well, then we had all of his limos, the Secret Service limos and his limo there, which is, they have a fleet of them things. And then they had the Secret Service guarding him there. And then he would show us stuff. We did sit in one of them, but they had a communication system like in the president's car, and he could call anywhere across the world. And at that time, and then in the back of the Secret Service, he opened the trunk. I said, "What's all them damn briefcases in there?" He said, "Didn't you weren't here?" I said, "No, I wasn't here when you opened them up." And he opened them up, and here's these darn little mini machine guns in there for everybody to take, on when they're scoping out things. And, I mean, they had a whole trunk full of machine guns. Them little square box ones, they're kind of like, I forget what the model they are.
The kind of Bonnie and Clyde.
No, that's a Thompson. These are like little square boxes with a clip up underneath. and with a shoulder strap, they can bring that thing up and
They're Uzis.
little Uzis. Okay, yeah.
I was teasing you, Charlie.
Mm,
I can't
Yeah.
get over to YouTube right now from here on my tablet. I'm on my tablet, and I'm
Okay.
afraid to go over to YouTube. I'm afraid I'm gonna lose he's here if I go to YouTube. Did I lose you?
Hey.
No, I was reading Brian's.
Yeah, I'm reading
Look at
Tiny
all
Things.
that. So anyway, that was some interesting stuff back in the day.
Yeah.
I went and I was watching Chester's club meeting, and you had Howard there trying to explain the Demaree, which was a fiasco. And he had a thing, a original article from the American Bee Journal from George Demaree, where he had wrote about his discovery, I guess you'd call it, or invention of the Demaree method. And so I went ahead and tried to Google it, and I actually got I'll say one page of it, I guess. And you know, Bill, you go and listen to some of these guys, and they'll talk about down in the brood chamber, you're supposed to put foundation in there
Mm-hmm.
and not drawn comb. You know, they don't say to put drawn comb in there. And I got the article right here from 1892. And let me see.
1892.
Yeah, it says here, I fill out the brood chamber with empty combs as I have a full, I don't know why they call it full outfit for my apiary. And then, but full frames of foundation or even starter, let's see, how is it? If, as I have a full outfit for my apiary, but full frames of foundation or even starter strips, I guess,
Mhm.
Yeah.
may be used in the absence of drawn comb. You know, but you got to remember, this is what, 100 years ago or more.
Yeah.
So back then they were getting about 150 pounds of honey per hive because they had forage. And depending also where this guy lived at too.
Yeah.
Where today, here where I live, the average is 50 pounds. You know, they were like what Ian gets up in Canada, where they got so much forage in, they can draw wax and they can fill it and all this other stuff.
Right.
And then he talks about in here, they're not making runny honey, they're making combed honey. That's what his big thing.
Yeah.
In his day, comb honey was the way you were selling your honey.
Yep.
Mhm.
And with that, you need super strong highs. But
Yep.
what he also says here, and this is a new practice, you know, that he's come up with. And I think it's kind of like, I think what this is, it isn't really an article. It's like, you know, one guy, you know, and I have heard this where Doolittle and all those different guys, they would sit there and write in these journals or these, you know, bi-monthly journals or whatever, and they would kind of like be like us sitting here, you know, bouncing ideas back and forth on how to do things. But the only thing is they did it in written form.
Yeah.
Over the course of the year.
Yeah. So they had to wait for snail mail to get somebody else's idea.
Exactly. Or wait for the article or if I think, what was it? Date Ant at the American Bee Journal, they would put it in the comment sections and they were writing back and forth and all
Yeah.
that. I found it quite interesting. It says, I have practiced up in. He said, I have practiced the new system largely for the past 2 seasons, and my surplus yield was never so large. Through it is well known that the past 2 seasons were not above the average as honey yielding seasons. So he's talking about, the present time at the time. And I've already inundated my plan of reverting swarming and entirely preventing increase. Entirely preventing increase is accomplished by one single manipulation right at the commencement of swarming. Only one hive and its outfit is used for each colony. Any system that requires a divided condition of the colony using 2 or more hives is not worthy of a thought. So basically he's talking about, instead of splitting, he wants to do a vertical, as we call it today,
Vertical split.
where the hive is still the same thing. It's still the same single hive and all that. It's I get, it's the way they word their sentence structure. It's, I don't know.
Yeah, it's different.
It's a different way of speaking English.
Yeah.
And
They spoke the King's English.
I don't know whether that was what it was, or just the way it doesn't flow like we do today.
Yeah.
And it says, in my practice, I begin with the strongest colonies and transfer the combs containing brood from the brood chamber to an upper story above the queen excluder. One comb containing some unsealed brood and eggs is left in the brood chamber as a start for the queen. I fill out the brood chamber with empty combs as I have a full outfit for my apiary. And let's see. And then when the manipulation is complete, the colony has all of its brood with the queen. Only its condition is altered. The queen has new brood nests below the excluder, while the combs of the brood are in the center of the super, with the sides filled out with empty combs above the queen excluder. Then it says, in 21 days, all the brood will be hatched out above the queen excluder, and the bees will begin to hatch in the queen's chamber below the excluder. So a continuous succession of young bees is well sustained. If my objective is to take the honey with the extractor, I'll tear up with a surplus of extracting combs as fast as the large colony needs the room in the stored surplus. So it's worded in a little bit more complicated for maybe I can understand, but it basically kind of cleared up a few things as far as how to build that thing and do it. I know that the one guy that Nancy knows, he was explaining it at that Chester County thing, and he had it basically right. And all that, but he was talking about like, well, if you get a queen upstairs, and I'm like, well, you're not supposed to let them have a queen upstairs. You just lost the
No.
whole concept.
Exactly.
And then he was setting back his honey supers or his brood box a little bit so the drones can come out and all this kind of crazy stuff. And I said, you don't want to do that either, because you might have a mated queen come back and they'll smell that brood up there and fly in.
Yeah.
All right, we gotta go back to Phil the Bee Man. Welcome, Phil, from up there, and you're in Manitoba. I do know that, and you're close to Ian. His losses were 20. I was watching his video. That's why I mentioned it to Phil, and he had quite a bit. He puts his bees in the shed too. They're 24% dead, 8% weak overall. Last year's production hives, the worst, at 60% survival and 40% dead or weak and all. I know that Phil's been experimenting with different ways of, mite treatments, Formic Pro and stuff like that. And he's been working with like the extension office, I'll say, with beekeeping up there, figuring out how to, reduce losses and stuff like that. And I know he's got his bees out of the shed finally and all. So he's got a pretty big operation up there. I think it's as big as Ian's for sure.
So Charlie, Sunday and Mondays are when I hit my 7 days to get back into the top of my Demarys. And I went through the bottoms too. Are you gonna try and hit them every 7 days and go through the whole thing from your maintenance standpoint, or are you gonna look?
That was another thing I did Sunday. All right, I had 4 hives I did so many days ago.
Yep.
I'll forget what it was, a Monday, I think. And Sunday were the ones from out here at the end of the row here in.
Yep.
And I looked at them Sunday, and the top, there was a lot of brood up there that had already hatched out, and they had, because it was only 7 days, they had a little bit of nectar here and there in it. I went ahead and pulled all them combs out of there. And then the first 2 or 4 hives, I went down in the bottom and to look, and I didn't see a lot of cap brood yet. So I didn't mess with it. I put it all back together.
I'm just too dumb to work my computer. I can't get I got my camera turned off somewhere.
It's got to be there someplace.
It says it's a manual button, and I'm like looking for it. I did this one other time too, but anyway, so I went through and I did the same thing. I mean, Sundays and Mondays, I'm rolling through them, and
so I
actually moved some brood up. You know what I mean? I moved some brood up.
Had some hives that the brood wasn't ready to come up. She had still open brood and stuff like that. So I said, I went and looked at 4 of them. I'm like, okay, I'm not going down in the bottom and the rest of them. If these 4 are like this, the rest of them are kind of like that. So I pulled out a lot of those frames to where I put it in a box off to the side and let the bees suck the nectar out of it. If there was any little, it wasn't like I had that one video where I was shaking the heck out of the nectar. Well, they were like a week overdue of inspection. It was 14, 15 days since I'd been in there, way overdue. And these were just right. You had some of them had completely hatched out with a little bit of nectar specked here and there in it. I pulled them frames out of there. I wasn't going to let them fill them up, and I put foundation frames in. Other ones had maybe 1 or 2 frames that still had brood in there that needed to hatch out. I left them in there. I just kept pulling the ones out, and I checked the bottoms on our 4 highs. They really didn't have any brood to put upstairs. I said, okay, leave you alone. And then I went into the ones of those 4 highs. I did like a day or so later, and they were only, I had just did those, whatever that video was last week. So it might have been 5 days. Well, there was a lot of frames up there that, you know, they were still cooking. They, you know, as far as frames were not hatched out. There was maybe 1, and the rest of them, if there was 6 frames up there, maybe 1 frame was emptied out, and the rest of them still had lots of brood in there. So you weren't on earlier, but I went and I got some, my queens came in Sunday. I went and got them today, and I made splits out of 2 of my nukes. I got 2 splits out of each nuke, and I'm sitting there counting my nukes. I'm like, well, shoot, I only need, I hadn't, originally I got 6 queens. I went back and got 2 more. So I had 3 queens there that I needed to make more splits in order to put them in the hole, put them in boxes. And I'm looking at my count of nukes. I said, well, you know, I need two or 3 more splits in order to make about 8 or 9, I think it's either 8 or 9 nukes. And I had to make actually 9 splits. So I went down to them Demaries that had that cat brood in there, and I'm like, okay, I don't normally do this, but all I got is nurse bees. I took a pro nuke, which is perfect for the job, took off the inner cover full of bees, shook all those into the pro nuke, pulled out 5 frames of brood and open food and stuff like that, put in that pro nuke, did that to 3 different hives, made up the splits, put the cage queens in there, and I locked them up with some hardware cloth. So now I've got 8 dedicated resource hives. I've got a nuke here on the next rack over. I can either leave it as a nuke. If it gets big enough, I might go to 10 frame for an additional honey hive. I had 2 nukes on this other rack, and one of them I made the decision to go ahead and turn it into a honey production hive. And then the next nuke passed out. I went through it to check for queen cells and stuff. And it's got 2 deeps on it. And I put actually 2 mediums in there that's got foundation. I shook all the bees off of those big deep frames into those 2 medium boxes. And then I put a queen seeder on there so they will repopulate that top box so I can call out those deep boxes in that setup. But I'm going to use that hive setup as my cell builder. And I'm like, okay, I've got on this rack, I've got a honey production hive. I've got the cell builder hive. I got a space. I've got another nuke here that you can either leave it as a nuke or transform it into a honey production hive later on once it gets grown up. And that's where I'm at. So and in the meantime, you might say I've actually, instead of having 28 hives, now I'm down to 27 hives. Don't sound like much, but that's 1 less feeder, 1 less hive you got to medicate and all that. And I think I would say that 8 hives, 8 resource hives are good enough. I don't think I need a dozen of them. I don't know. What do you think about that, Bill? I mean, I know they say so many, the percentage per nuke per production hive. Sometimes people say 50%. Sometimes people say have 3 production hives to 1 nuke resource hive.
Well, if you are going to have 8 nukes as cell builders, you
Well,
figure
well,
that's
there are 8.
one frame of queen cells per box.
Yeah, but what I'm getting at is I got 8 nukes sitting there that'll be like 5 over 5, or maybe actually 5. Probably with mediums, there'd be 3 medium boxes per hive. So what I'm getting at is if I have a dead out in the springtime, I've got 8 nukes.
Yeah,
I can transfer them nukes down like I did last week
yeah,
and drop it in the hole, and I'm up and running again.
yeah. You can definitely do that with them.
Well,
But-
I call them. I call that insurance hives.
Yes.
I
But
got
if you're
8
going to use the nuke as a cell builder, then
that's another hive over here on another rack.
Yeah, you're only going to get 1 frame of queen cells per nuke.
Per what?
Per nuke. Per 5 frames of each, you get 1 frame of queen cells.
Yeah, well, that's all I run. I mean, I'll graft 30 cells, 2 bars in a 5 frame nuke like that, and
Yeah,
that's all I can handle.
right.
I only have enough mating boxes, 2 frame mating boxes for 30 cells, or 30 queens. So I'm grafting. I'm not going to get 100%. You know that yourself. If you get 80%, you're doing great.
Right.
So if I graft every week on a rotation, and I got May, June, and July, and I'm done for the year. That's it.
Yeah.
So you only got a
3 months.
certain amount of time to do that.
Yep.
And I got that nuke there kind of dedicated. It's got the population right now. It's going to have even more population here in the next week or two with all these different bees hatching out. I got deep frames of, corner to corner brood in it. So that's I'm saving that one as a cell builder. I got the other nuke that I turned into a production hive. I got another new nuke that I just started. Can be either a insurance hive or it can be a honey production hive. I don't know whether it's probably going to take me this season just to build it up.
Yeah.
And, it's not going to be a production hive this year, but I can turn it into one. I'll have to see how my nuke or my cell builder turns out. If it turns out to be good and I get nice queen cells and stuff like that, there's enough room on this rack that I can actually put maybe another nuke in there. So I could still have, let's say, 9 insurance hives. And I can have 18 production hives.
Yep.
At least have as many as 18 production hives. So if I average 80 pounds per hive, that'll put me just a little under 1,500 pounds.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where
My struggle is when I'm back in there 7 days in that top box and I find queen cells in there.
Yeah, well, I did find that on them strong high, on some of those ones that I pulled those ones that are extra strong, I did find some cap queen cells, and it wasn't about, like you say, about 6-7 days. But they were the ones that had at least couple honey supers away from the brood chamber. The ones that only got one or 2 honey supers, you didn't see quite the prominence of that. The ones that's got, I think I put 3 honey supers on. That's the one that's got more queen cells about it.
So I've got 8 of them that are Demaride. Of the 12 honey production hives I had last year, I still have 9. 8 of them are set up Demaride right now. And when I went through them at day 7, I found, supersedure or emergency cells. You know what I mean? They were mid-frame. And it's a struggle for me the idea of the Demery is you want to jack up your population, but it's just hard for me. I struggle. So I end up pulling those supersedure cells out and dropping them in a nuke, you know what I mean, and making a split out of them. And I think
Well, I
I'm
did that today.
7.
I did that.
I'm up 7 right now. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, but the thing of it is, you're recouping, you're regrowing, you're
Yeah, I'm
recouping of
growing.
the losses that you have.
Yep.
Okay,
Exactly.
so that's just like today. I pulled those frames off the top of those, I think out of 3 of those hives. And it was it was a quick and easy split, real quick. Didn't have to worry about the queen. I knew where she was at. Plenty of
They come out of that
nurseries.
top box quick and easy. You make a split, wham, bam.
Yeah.
It's
And
great.
bing,
I love
bang,
it.
boom, you're done. And I dropped the queen in there and I was done. So I guess what I'm getting at is I have repopulated. My concern this year is getting my honey production hives up to speed so I can grab as much honey as I can get, and rebuilding my nuke yard over here on the other end of that line, because I had utilized my quote insurance hives because I had some dead outs. And sometimes I think I did have a nuke. That's what it was. I had put a nuke out there on one of them spots early winter, and I wrapped it and everything, but it just didn't turn out all that great as far as population. And I think the queen kind of died out on me. So I combined that nuke with another 10 framer that wasn't all that great. And I think there was another nuke in there someplace. I put all 3 of them into one 10 frame box. It had some brood in it and whatever. And I dropped the queen in there today. Now it had bee population. That's why I kept it at, it's a single 10 frame box, but it had the bee population in order to take care of that queen. At least I believe it does. And so hopefully within 4 days, that queen will be out. She'll be laying, and things will get warmer, and she'll take that hive through this season's honey production. I think I'm going to watch that queen. I'm going to see what kind of laying production she has compared to my second year queens that I have in the rest of these hives, which I'm not overly excited about right now, unless the weather. I got to figure out whether I know the cold weather did stun them back some, but whether that has part to do with it, and the fact that I've listened to the people out there. That one science gal said the second year they lose 40% of their egg laying producing power. That's a lot. And I'm starting to lean on, maybe I need to, if I'm looking for hives that are kind of equal in strength, and I got a queen in there that's just banging it out, and I got some really super strong hives, maybe I need to start leaning towards requeening on a yearly basis, or like Doug said up in Saskatchewan, at least half of my yard every year.
Yep. So the other 2 things that went on, I had talked to you guys about putting Formic Pro on everything. So I dug my Formic Pro out, and I thought, well, I'm going to test them first so I know what the Formic Pro does. I can't find a mite right now in any of them.
Yeah.
I tested 3/4 of them. So I didn't put the Formic Pro on because I couldn't find a mite.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that I found, and Bill, I was messaging Charlie about this earlier. I've found 4 queens in those 9 colonies right now that were red dot queens.
Really?
That means they're starting their 3rd season, if I'm thinking straight, because it was red, last year was green, and now this year is blue.
Yeah.
So I think Charlie, you were tapping on it earlier. Queens is what's hurting me. I think a lot. You know what I mean? Because I found one of them that was a red dot, and she's gone to be just a drone layer now. You know what I mean? That's all she had. So I replaced her.
She's done. It's just like Cajun Homestead Brian here, or Brad. He had a queen that was 18 months old. It was, it down there. It was done by year 2 in middle of the honey season. Because they lay 12 months out of the year. So here, Troy Hall and all them up at New York or New Hampshire, 2 years. He told me that. He says, you're in a mid-Atlantic area, 2 years. That's the best you're going to get out of that queen.
So every other year. I replaced that drone layer, and I found these 3 additional here Sunday, between Sunday and today. So I'm going to pull them. When I get queens, I'm going to pull out those 3 and replace them. And I'm going to put them in, I'm going to create a zombie fleet. Yep. Yeah. And I'm going to just set those up. And
Brad's zombie hive. Hey, Todd. Yep. Todd says commercial guys around there in California are fumigating their, or using Formic to fumigate their drawn comb. I wonder how they're doing that. I mean,
I am too. I wonder how they're doing that too.
Yeah, especially in California, the way them people.
Yeah.
Are.
Well, now the tricky part of that is you're supposed to only put Formic on a hive that's got at least 6 frames of bees, because they actually flutter and circulate that inside, where I don't think you'd get any circulation on just drawn comb, right?
Unless they put it in a box and they fumigate it in a confined system.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what they did.
Formic Pro gas doesn't rise, it sinks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. That's interesting. But so it's been an adventure in a bee yard, and then I'm going to have to hit the ones I just set up and the ones I moved comb into the top brood box on in 7 days. But I was just kind of thinking my way through tearing them apart. Maybe I'll do that every 2 weeks to go into the bottom brood box. You know what I mean?
So Todd, are they putting on a bigger dose of the Formic Pro, or how much are they using to do that? Because they're using empty boxes with no bees. I mean, that kind of makes sense. But what's the dose they're using?
Yeah, but is it pads or is it some kind of a liquid?
Right.
Thing.
Yeah.
And I presume they got boxes with no bees, but they got comb in there. That's what they're treating, is the comb.
They stack them up high and wrap them with plastic and seal it. Don't know what.
That's why the commercial guys buy 5-gallon buckets of formic acid.
They do.
They probably put them on something, and then they put them in there, wrap them up, and even though they don't have bees blowing it around inside there, if they seal it up in plastic, I would think that gets a pretty good burn on that stuff.
Yeah. But then again, Will, what is the purpose? I mean, what purpose does it serve to do that? Because once they do that and they open them up, the gas dissipates, it's gone, it's done.
Lost Will again. My question is this: are they treating the comb thinking that isn't it a thing where Formic is kind of
Formic will penetrate the cappings and penetrate the comb, but it does not stay in the comb.
They had buried, but what I was getting at is I don't think it's a proven thing, but when you do Formic Pro, I believe it is, or is it Aprigard, that the bees
kill the virus in the wild.
The bees seem to come back at a much better rate. I guess she's laying better. The patterns are better. It seems like it sanitizes the viruses in the combs. that if there's any virus lurking in the comb or whatever. I've heard
So
something
instead of putting Paramoth on over winter, I should put Formic on, right? Seal them up in Formic.
See, that's right.
Wonder
Todd
if that
said
would kill
has
the
to kill the
wax moth.
viruses in the wax. And there has been documentation sort of that maybe more anecdotal is what they call it.
Yeah.
The beekeepers have noticed that the bees come back with a much better, not attitude, but a prolific,
Vigor.
much more prolific laying pattern. They seem to do better. They seem like they're feeling better and all that. So they're saying, hey, this Formic is killing the viruses in the combs.
Yeah, it's a way to, not only are you treating the mites, if you do this with the bees on, but I'm sure they're using a higher dose.
Oh, yeah.
So, but if you're using Formic with the bees on there, not only are you treating the mites, but now you're going after the viral load too.
Yeah, well, that's what
And
they're
this
saying.
is going after the viral load over the winter when there's no honey supers on and there's no quote unquote second super on.
No,
You know
they
what I'm
used,
saying?
they're storing these hot boxes.
Right. So they're killing the viral load in the wax
Yeah.
because that's where it hangs out, along with, the man-made chemicals. They penetrate the wax. They stay in the wax. They're called forever chemicals. So this isn't a quote unquote forever chemical, but it does go after the viruses. And I see what he's saying now, and I kind of get what they're doing. So, but if sideliners and hobbyists did this to their supers over winter, their honey supers, would it have
I don't see where that's going to mount to anything because that's not a brood frame.
True, it's not a brood frame, but then again, that brood frame gets brown. What do we do with it? We scrape that comb off anyway.
Yeah, but what I'm getting at is you'll have the viral loads in a brood frame over.
Yeah, the viral load in a brood frame is always higher than a honey frame.
Right.
That's true.
I don't think would there be any viral load in a honey frame?
If it's had brood in it, yeah.
If it had brood in it, yeah. But see, I don't like myself. I try not to have any brood in it.
Yeah.
I have some that are tinged, like you say, have a slight brownish tinge to it. A queen might have got up there and, laid one set of brood.
Round of brood before she went down.
Yeah. Well, before I put her down there. So
were you starting to get any weight in your honey supers, Charlie?
Somewhat. Yeah. I mean,
I was surprised.
When I went out there, I didn't use my lifter. I just picked I was kind of pressed for time, trying to get it done. My hips and stuff are achy, and I just laid it off to the side, went in there, looked around, and the first one I went top and bottom in the brood chamber. Didn't see anything in the bottom brood chamber. I seen some brood, but not full slabs of cat brood. I'm like, okay, I'm done here. Put it all back together. And I kind of maybe did another one like that. And I'm like, okay, I'm not seeing anything. Here's two of them in a row. And then I went a thread and I said, I'm just going to go and check for queen cells in the top boxes. And then some of them are just, some of them are not demorete out in some of the hives. And then like today, I went in there and the brood was still there. It hadn't hatched out, but I used it as a split. So now I'm back up to, let's say 27 hives. That's all I want. And I got I've got my nukes for my insurance hives where I need to be. Hopefully all the queens will make it and be hatched and start laying and everything like that. And then I have my cell builder sort of set up for it, ready for that. And all the other hives, I've got those deep boxes above the queen excluder to get all that brood hatched out so I can cycle all that stuff out of my mix and get everything standardized across the board.
Yeah, I'm putting 2 honey supers on everything that I'm setting up, and I was just surprised, that they're starting to get some nectar weight.
Well, the dandelions are out, so that's a signal of
They're just popping here.
things are starting.
Yeah.
And now today was kind of cloudy, and yeah, they were flying pretty good. Not robust, but not bad at all. I mean, I think if it was a bright sunny, or it was a little bit, if it was today was kind of like you started out with a light sweatshirt, and then you kind of got if I have my bee jacket on, I don't have the sweatshirt on. But if I'm just kind of working at the mill, I think I would probably had my light sweatshirt on.
It was t-shirt weather under a bee jacket.
It ain't t-shirt weather by no means.
But so Bill, cases of frames, wax coated, right?
Yep.
Can I store them just out in the temperatures, or should I put that in the basement where it's a little cooler so that things don't, when things get hot? What do you think
What
about
happens
that?
to bees when it gets hot?
Yeah.
What's this?
I would say,
Yeah.
If you store those frames in the heat, you're going to have the bottom of that box is going to be coated with wax.
That's what I figured.
Because they
Gotta get
will
them in the
melt
basement where
on
it's
off
cool.
them. Yep, you need to store them where it's cool.
Yep.
yeah, because I've heard some commercial guys say, yeah, we used to do wax, and the darn boxes started sliding.
Yeah.
off.
Yep.
And then they
Yeah.
did something else. They did a bunch of different things and whatever. But I find that very interesting. And I think it's probably quite true that Formic is killing the virus loads. And I think Penn State did this back in CCD area when I first started. They jumped in on, trying to figure out what's going on with all these bees, i.e. the mites were killing them. But then they got into the wax and they found all this chemicals in there, like, what's it called? Brufalindate, which they hadn't had used for I don't know how many years.
Yep.
And it's like, why is that in there? We haven't used that in years. And there was a bunch of chemicals. There was like about 24 or 30 different chemicals they found in the wax.
Yep.
And some of it hadn't been used for years in the bee industry. And I don't know whether it's still used in the farming industry in certain fungicides or, broadleaf killers or whatever.
Another thing that I saw when I was in them, I saw a blood red, like a bright blood red pollen.
Yeah, I seen red and I seen orange yesterday.
Yeah, I've seen orange.
Bright orange. I think I'm not sure about. I know right now Himbit, the purple flower, is up in the hayfield where my son planted. There's some patches that the hay didn't quite come up, and he went up there and drilled it again. But the Himbit's there. I know that's a certain type of pollen. I don't know whether it's orange pollen or what. And that's a nectar source too.
Yep.
And dandelion is a nectar source. We got a fair amount of dandelions. We're not covered with them. And trees are starting to leaf out. We've had maple. There's a little bit of nectar there. It's been coming in.
Cherries, red buds.
Yeah, we don't have any red buds around here that I know. I never knew what a red bud was, somebody pointed at me like more towards your area. So, well, it's 10:30. I guess
It's 10:30. So everyone, I appreciate you coming out. If you enjoyed tonight's chat, smash that like button. If you're new to the channel or you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe to the channel. It's good for both of us. It keeps me around and keeps you getting good information from everybody. So, good night, everybody. Nancy's going to be on Wednesday night at 6:30. Charlie's on Friday night at 8 o'clock.
As far as I know. Well,
It's-
maybe.
Well, it may be a group appearance Friday night from
It might
3 or
be.
4 of us. So we'll see.
We'll
We'll see what Bill feels like when he gets here.
I got my laptop updated. I sent it to the shop and got an overhaul. So now it's speedy because it's got a solid state hard drive in it. It's been wiped and reloaded. And
Cool.
I've got he fixed it to where I've got an external Wi-Fi internet connection
Well, that's good.
and all that stuff. And I've hooked it up. I went through it and got all my passwords in it and everything up and running for Zoom or for StreamYard and all that stuff.
Good.
And it's way better than what it was last time. Way better. So I just keep it as all right. Well, night everyone, and I'll see you either Wednesday night on Nancy's or my channel, either remotely or something like that. It has to be remotely. I'm either going to be in Georgia, which I found out today that most likely it won't happen this week, which is good.
Yeah. So it'll either be Friday night from Woodstock or Friday night from Georgia.
I ain't gonna be. If I'm in Georgia, there ain't be no Friday night.
Then it might be a Friday night from Woodstock.
It's more like Friday night Woodstock show because he said they're not going to call us on a Thursday because we're not going to be picking bees up on a Saturday. So
Yeah, that's true.
most likely we might get a call. We're going to leave Monday morning.
Yeah,
I said, well, that worked out even better for me.
Yeah. So everybody, I appreciate you coming out. I hope you had a great Easter, and good luck with the bees this week. Have a good one. Good night.
All right. Thanks, Todd, for that info.
Yeah. Thank you, Todd.
Well, we're still here. I don't know about Will or Bill. It's still alive.
Yeah, I had a blast in the bees the last 2 days.
Yeah.
We're still live, Bill. You got the same problem I had
End of
Friday
the
night.
stream.
Huh?
End of the stream.